Sweet fields of autumn, the gold grain is falling, the white clouds drift lonely, the wild swan is calling. Alas for the daisies, the dolphin and grasses, when winds sweep and rainfall fill lowlands and passes. The snows of December shall fill windy hollow, the bleak rain trails after, and March wind shall follow. The deer through the valleys leave print of their going, and diamonds of sleet mark the ridges of snowing. The stillness of death shall stoop over the water, the plover sweep low where the pale streamlets falter. But deep in the earth clod the black seed is living, when spring sounds her bugles for rousing and giving.
Good morning. Our opening words this morning are by poet Mary Oliver, entitled Mindful. Every day I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in a haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself in this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with teachings such as these, the untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass? I light this chalice to remind us of the light of this community, of the love that holds us all, and of our deep interconnectedness. I invite you to join me in the recitation of our shared covenant. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. A decade or so ago, I was driving down a quiet country road. And admittedly, I was probably going a little bit above the speed limit, but there was no one around. There weren't even houses. It was this gorgeous day, and the open road beckoned me. It was such a delightful drive that it took me a bit to notice the police lights following me in the near distance. A presence that had probably been there longer than I realized. And it was clear to me very quickly that a speeding ticket would be coming my way. So I wasn't surprised when the police officer asked for my license and registration. I was surprised when he asked me to get out of the car. I was scared when he got in my face and loudly chastised me for not having the right insurance card with me, even though he had just called and verified my valid insurance. And I was shocked and shaken when he told me he was impounding my car, took my keys, and drove away, leaving me alone and far from anything. And when he yelled at me and said he'd arrest me if I debated him at all, I took him seriously. And to be clear, my crime here was one of speeding. But as momentarily traumatizing as this was, I honestly wrote off the whole experience. One bad apple, I thought. I didn't think about it much beyond that. Until Black Lives Matter became naming loudly and clearly the experience of Black people in this country, until I realized that my experience had been one of the vastly better ones. As a white person, I left my negative interaction with the police unarmed, unarrested, able to walk away and really think no more about it. Not the same for Black folks at the hands of the police. And as you know, for the past several years, Black Lives Matter and others have worked diligently to say just this, that Black people's lives are in danger every day at the hands of the police. And eventually, like you, like many of you, my eyes were opened. I began to see what was being said, and once my eyes were open, the racism and the violence against Black people was everywhere. It was readily evident. So many of us committed ourselves to change that. But Newton's third law of motion is evident here too, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. When one works for the freedom of oppressed peoples, out comes the ruling class to keep them in their place, with all the tools of oppression at their disposal. Up came the flags with blue and black lines indicating support for the police. Out came the signs, police lives matter too. As though the thought of keeping Black people alive is in itself somehow a threat to the police. There's a little house, a duplex, a side-by-side duplex, that I drive by regularly. On one side is a police lives matter flag. And 3 or 4 feet away from it is a Black Lives Matter flag. And I'm guessing that the conversation between these neighbors, people that live with only a common wall separating them, I'm guessing it's not an easy conversation. And these flags are troublesome for a couple of reasons. One, whoever is hanging the police lives matter sign is telling their neighbors, we don't see a problem, and more than that, we're not willing to see a problem. And 2, it means that the conversation between the neighbors has come to a hard stop, I imagine. And it's not uncommon during times of great shift in the world for separation of this sort to happen, as those losing power hold on to it with their last breath, willing to fight against anything that threatens the power structure. And that's always been true. I keep thinking, of all things, about the crucifixion of Jesus. How the Romans put him to death for one reason and one reason alone, because he preached to the people that they could be free, and the people listened. And there is little more dangerous to a ruling class than a growing awareness among the oppressed that they have the power to change things. Whether in Jesus' time or in ours, the most heretical thing we can do is speak truth to power and to stay awake. If you ask yourself, or most liberals or progressives, how Trump came to power, a very common answer is, I stopped paying attention. It was easier during the Obama years to look away, even though there was harm done then too. But it was possible to feel essentially safe, at least more so for many people. So when I look at the map of the 2020 election results in Rhode Island, when I see a strip of blue down the coast and a long, wide red swath as soon as one moves inland, I recognize that it's the more diverse cities that are moving in a progressive direction, and as one goes more rural, generally one encounters more conservatism. So competing flags, violence, fear of each other, this is right now our new normal. But it's not normal. And it wasn't until Trump was unexpectedly elected 4 years ago that a lot of us realized how much hate and racism there is in this country, and how much fear. The election had the outcome that a lot hoped for, at least in part. But it won't save us, not in the longer term. Because the truth is, and you know this, if you look at the numbers, we had a near miss and a huge loss outside of the presidential race. Add to that no matter what the political outcome, there aren't really winners here in a country this divided. We're just treading water. So the election, beloveds, is only the beginning of the work needed. Our job is to stay awake and aware. And if there was ever a time for Unitarian Universalism, for a faith that sees the inherent worth of all, this is it. In our many Zoom calls and meetings over these past couple of weeks, I've heard one theme again and again, that we need to learn how to talk to each other across differences. That the red-blue divide down the center of this state and around every town in this country, it's unsustainable. And as much as I hate to be the bearer of bad news, we know, right, that Biden won't save us, not from the most essential ills of this country. He does have the power to improve things, to be sure. But the real work of change belongs to the people, all people, including us. In the weeks and months that follow, we'll be coming to talk to you about the adoption of an 8th UU principle, a commitment to anti-oppression, a promise of working towards something better. It's not the whole answer or the only answer, but it does help us begin as a community to speak truth to power, to be a guiding voice in building a better world. That then leads us forward, whether it's conversation with those that think differently or a truly substantive change to policing, we move forward. I acknowledge that this is uncomfortable and hard work. It would be easier to recede back into comfort, and it would be a dramatic mistake to do so. So may we commit ourselves to be the change makers that we are ever so capable of being. Blessed be.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though with pain I need my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Our closing words today are by the Reverend Ellen Quadgrass, who serves in Westminster, just up the road from us in East Greenwich. It's entitled A Prayer for White People. Sheltered in our homes, we're going to work at risk. For week after week, we're edgy, tired, a little raw. We're tender, vulnerable, open, a little more open than usual. Those of us who are white, who before might have been distracted, who before might have been too busy, who before might have been preoccupied with our own lives, are noticing the ways that injustices happen to people of color, the same way, again and again and again. Now we have become aware. Please, may we be aware. May we not lose awareness. May we not get distracted. May we not turn away. May we open, really open, accepting the invitation to change, really change our minds, our hearts, our world. When we encounter calls to defund the police, when we encounter calls for reparations, when we hear follow our lead from people of color, may we listen, may we learn, may we be open. Even if it means rethinking everything you thought you knew about the world. We have, all of us humans, an enormous opportunity to change one of the oldest injustices in history, to change everything. May we stay vulnerable. May we stay tender. May we take action. Eyes and hearts and minds open. Please join us in our closing song.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Carry the flame of peace and love until